Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so happy to have such a large group here, and we're excited to talk to you guys about cloud today. I want to kick off by thanking our wonderful partner, TRL. Gary Sfaria is here. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to him to get us started. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We truly appreciate it. We know that at this time, we are all extremely busy, and taking 45 minutes out of your day is, I know, is a commitment, and I really appreciate it, as does our partner Arcules. This is an exciting time right now in our industry with where the future of cloud-based applications are. As you'll find out, we have some great partners with Arcules, and also with what the future holds in technology. Cloud-based technology is the future right now. So it's very exciting. It's all about the future right now. And we just want to do is make sure everyone is aware of where this is going and how we're going to be addressing those with some pretty exciting partnerships that we have lined up. Truly appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Arcules to get us started, and then we'll be circling back a little later. But thanks again. Truly appreciate the time and the commitment. And I think this is going to be extremely beneficial for everyone. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ben.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Ben. I am a cloud and security architect with Arcules. Today we have a couple of things. I'm going to go over a little bit of our architecture initially, just how we're kind of set up, and then also move in towards a panel. We have some awesome people on our panel today. We have someone here from TRL Systems who just introduced himself, Gary. We also have TJ Hicks, and also we have Eric Camerino. Sorry if I butchered your last name there. I got a thumbs up, so I must have done a good job, eh? All right, so yeah, I'll kick it off here and we'll start now. So what does Arcules bring to the table from a value perspective? So ultimately, everyone talks about cloud. There's lots of different kind of concepts of cloud, which are really important to understand. But the biggest thing here is our core values are providing you less to maintain. As an integrator, end user, the goal here is the less hardware you have, the simpler software that you have, the easier it is to maintain, which ultimately provides you better return for value in a product. We're always up to date and online. This also kind of comes into that less to maintain perspective, but you're not updating Windows every 2 months or every month, depending on what latest CVE came out, right? This is something that we do under the hood. We're able to fully update your systems remotely, and where possible, we even do daily updates within our web platform, which have zero impact to you as a user. We also have a smaller security profile. From a profile perspective, we don't require VPNs. We don't require any kind of complex SD-WAN setups in order for you to be able to gain access to your systems with similar to with traditional on-premise solutions. So by doing this, you're ultimately reducing your security footprint. You're making your IT guys happier, and ultimately, again, providing that additional value. And then one of our other core values is adapting to demands. We are a cloud native solution, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in our next couple of slides. I want to be clear that yes, we do push daily, but you may or may not notice some of those changes. We are able to dark launch. We have feature flags, very modern tech stack is the best way to describe this, which ultimately enables us to be able to provide real-time value and change the way the product looks for only a subset of customers to validate propositions before we go ahead and move and deploy those to a wider audience. That's how we're able to adapt so fast and able to provide value quicker to you and your customers. So now I'm going to talk about cloud versus cloud native. If many of you were at ISC West probably a couple of weeks ago, I hope you had fun. But also, I think you probably saw every other booth had cloud written across it. Now, everyone wants to get on the cloud bandwagon, but not every cloud is built the same. And I think that's really critical to understand. When people say cloud can mean many different things. It could mean a pure SaaS-based product which is zero touch, which is kind of more leaning towards us and where we're at, in addition to being cloud native, which is slightly different again, where it's truly horizontally scaling. Doesn't matter how much load you need to put on, whether it's 1 camera or 100 million cameras, it would scale horizontally, right? Versus cloud, let's say like just moving whatever you had on premise into the cloud is not cloud, or it may be cloud in one concept, but it's not what we would classify as cloud native. Because you still have all those, although you've moved the compute or the resources into the cloud, you've still got the overhead and the problems that are attached to your on-premise systems, which means you've still got to handle security directly. You've got to handle your single points of failure. You have all the operations overhead of managing those deployments in the cloud. You still have a lack of visibility potentially into some of those solutions. When you're rolling out these kinds of concepts, you're still also constrained by fixed scalability. These systems are designed to run on single devices or maybe many devices, but it's still very rigid. It's not very fluid. It doesn't scale horizontally automatically. And that's where the difference between cloud native comes in. Cloud native, in the way that we've built our system, we're not what we would classify, at least in an engineering group, as a monolith. A monolith is the concept of an old a sort of code all in one place and an application just running that handles it. Our service is split up into over 90 segments. That means if one piece of the code goes wrong, the entire system doesn't go down. Or if one piece of the code becomes under stress from load, it automatically starts scaling out to other servers. That provides ultimately what we see as our unified experience, and also enables us as Arcules to provide you that platform that feels like cloud is actually on-premise. Other advantages that it comes with, because you're in a multi-tenant scenario and also you're sharing compute and resources, you only have to pay for what you use. So that also helps with your costs, in addition to being that single pane of glass without all the overhead of the network stuff that we talked about earlier. So hopefully that gives a good kind of understanding of the difference between what cloud is and what cloud native is as we move forward. I'm going to talk about our system architecture a little bit. I've mentioned a couple of times now already that we deploy daily, if not more than daily. So we're able to facilitate this through our CI/CD pipeline and feature flagging. This enables that only certain customers get certain features or new features, depending on how and what our agreements are with them. We have many customers who actually have lab accounts where they're actually able to test the latest and greatest features of all of our new stuff that we're pumping out without impeding their overall operations of their live and active sites. We support over 6,000 connections to different devices today. We handle all the major top brands, including Bosch, who are also represented here today on our system. We don't require any port forwarding. Want to be clear on that. You don't need to open ports up to the internet in order to make this work. It's outbound only. It acts as a client, not a server. The goal here is that we've built our architecture so that you can build the cloud your way without having that overhead, if that helps. So we're fully hybrid. We completely abstracted the storage layer. We don't care whether the video data lives in the edge or the cloud. It's just ubiquitous. You won't notice the difference. You don't even see it in the UI. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about security. We have external verifications to prove that we are trying to keep on top of the security climate. I want to be clear, as we move into the security and compliant world, it is everyone's responsibility for security and compliance. I feel like that's one of the biggest things everyone misses. Everyone's like, yes, it's a tick box, I have SOC 2, or yes, it's a tick box, they're GDPR compliant. That's not the way it really works in the real world. Everyone's responsibility for security. There are multiple layers, multiple facets, and we've tried to build that into our own culture at Arcules, which I think is huge. Everything is layered. So you don't have that single point of failure. If one layer breaks, the other layer picks it right back up and then is able to make sure it locks it down. Also, every single service. A lot of people talk about security still in old school terms around like perimeter security. If my perimeter is secure, no one can get through perimeter. Once you're in, it's easy, right? It's already secure. I did my checks at the front gate, right? That's no longer the case, especially in security and arguably the physical security industry as well. But as we go through every single one of those microservices I talked about earlier, each of them does every single check. So no matter what happens as it goes through the system, even if it's traversing and it wasn't at the boundary, everything is always being double checked, verified, and validated as it goes through our system. We encrypt everything with TLS 1.2 and greater. If anyone's familiar with the standards around that, we also do support TLS 1.3 moving forward. which is the latest standard to come out. Outbound traffic only, we talked about no port forwards, secure by default configuration. So when you get many devices, today, especially in California, you're not obviously allowed any default passwords to be set, and this is slowly being rolled out throughout the system. Our system comes pre-hardened. Everything is set up as you need it. That we definitely have recommended architectures and network diagrams to assist you in how that's deployed. But ultimately, we are secure by default and by design. From a platform security perspective, I think this is one of the more commonly talked pieces about. It's very hard for an on-premise system to use SAML because they're not really got that understanding of a network. Many companies now use Okta, Auth0, G Suite, all these different types of companies that all have these SAML connectors. This allows you to unify your authorization process within the company. Super awesome. Would recommend that you use it, and we fully support SAML too. We have granular user permissions inside of there, seamless sort of magic updates, everything's automated and updated. And also we do have support for MFA through SAML as well. And now I'm going to give you guys a quick demo. Yeah, let's jump into it. So for those not super familiar with our products, when you jump into the product, this is the first page you land on, which is our dashboard. You can see everything from a very high level very quickly. You can see all your sites globally. I'm not in the office today, just to give you an idea on latency. This is all real time. I have terrible internet at my home as well, so this is actually a pretty good test for our resiliency. This is fully customizable. You can have business insights, other things like that. So we can see graphs of people in the office, where people have come in. As you can see, the door is predominantly here shown as everyone's obviously walking through the door. That's their longest linger time. We also have views. So as you can see, we've got some views here. So I can throw up and see our PTZ cameras real quick. These are 4K cameras, which is pretty awesome. We have some lightweight PTZ control. Sorry, I'm arguing with Zoom on my screen right now. So as you can see, that was this is not virtual PTZ. I want to be clear, like this is almost instantaneous as I'm clicking on it. This is real-time PTZ. There's no virtual camera or anything behind this providing the data feed there. It's all live fed, and that, as I am not local, is actually going all the way up to the cloud and back down again. If I were local, we do have the ability to provide a shortcut local feed, even in the web browser, without any thick client. Another really awesome bonus. Other things maybe to mention, we have cases. They're pretty cool. You can lock down your data. If you have a security incident, that retains the data forever. An easier render of sites, especially as you get very large deployments. There could be value in being able to zoom in, especially have new employees. You're like, hey, not quite sure what's going on here. Maybe I need to look at a floor plan. Okay, cool. Now I have a floor plan. These are all uploadable. You guys can provide these in a couple of different image formats to enable access to them. From a devices perspective, I want to kind of double down on how easy it is to install the devices. I think this is also pretty important. It's a literal, just add camera. If you happen to know the gateway, you can click on the gateway, it will auto discover devices. If you don't happen to know the device, you can manually enter in the IPs. Typically, this takes only a few minutes to add tens, maybe even hundreds of cameras, depending on your complexities and password requirements internally. Got your rules engine here. If this, then that. If any of you are familiar with IFTT, super easy use. You can kind of build your own composite rules around any of the devices and data inside of the system. This goes for analytics as well, which I'll touch on towards the end. Finally, probably one other thing worth noting and mentioning here is just that verification and SAML pages, full audit compliance and logs. So if I go ahead and click on my logs here, you'll see all our audit trails within our system. It's fully auditable. I know that's really super important for some of you guys. Might take a little while to load because there's a lot of data on this one. We also have our network diagnostics built in. I think this is also kind of a newer feature within our product. It enables you to be able to select a device and be able to do ARP scan, speed tests, status, pings, and traces all within the product without you having to jump into that local network. Again, super, super powerful. And then finally, I just want to tap on the analytics that were raised. We talked about this. We have a couple of really cool features around this. So although we do have our native cloud AI, ML composites that allow you to be able to jump in and configure cameras. So let me just show you that real quick. We do also have the ability to connect to some of the newer cameras from both Bosch and also Axis. That provide metadata streams from the cameras from onboard analytics. And I think that will probably come up in some of our discussions later on the panel around how they are useful to our industry and how they could be used in interesting ways. And that's our product. I think this is a really good overview. I think we should probably jump straight into the panel. So I'm going to hand it off to Laurel.
Thank you, Ben. And thank you, Gary, so much for putting this together and doing invitations out to a lot of the folks that you've been working with and speaking to about where cloud is going. As we're probably aware, right, we're in the middle of a paradigm shift, and part of that is really understanding who is that partner. And that's, thank you, Ben, for going through all of that as it relates to our architecture and how we are truly differentiated and we separate ourselves from the industry as VSAS becomes standard, and then what those standardizations are. We hope we are leading, and we believe we are, in defining what that is going to be. With that said, there have been some questions that have come in, and if I may, introducing the panelist, TJ Hicks, again from PLANNET, and Eric Camarino from Bosch, and then of course, Gary from TRL Systems, and then our very own Ben Rowe. So first question, dispel the myths. Cloud is only for people who have bandwidth. Is that a true statement or not, Ben?
It is a false statement. So with hybrid concepts and hybrid storage and hybrid compute as we move, we're Kubernetes under the hood. For any of you people that like to kind of geek out under the hood on how it works, Kubernetes is this concept of containerization that ultimately allows you to flow compute anywhere around multiple nodes of compute. And then also from a storage perspective, it's fully abstracted. So you can choose where your storage lives. If you have low bandwidth constraints, we can operate on as little as less than like maybe 10 kilobytes per second per device if necessary.
Excellent, excellent. And Eric, I don't know if you can add to that at all, because we're talking about edge analytics that play into that. But I believe with the edge analytic, the compute maybe is done right there on your device. So
yeah, I mean, one thing that we've all seen in the modern era is smart devices in general just gotten more powerful. That device in your pocket is more powerful probably than the laptop on your desk right now. In the camera world, we are, one of the paradigms that we are seeing with the visible device is that it's not just about the image anymore, it's about the metadata. For all the lay people, metadata is, for a camera, is just notes on a scene. What am I looking at?
Uh-oh, I do believe, Eric, you may have froze.
He may have froze up.
Uh-oh. All right, we are going to just move on to the next question then, and then bring him back in here in another section. So cloud, is it less secure?
I can kick this one off. So this one's interesting. Is cloud less secure? Yes and no, right? It really depends on how you view it and what you deem your security risk and profile to be. If you were to look at it from a very high level, does your IT group have 700-800 plus engineers just focused on security like DCP, our hosting provider, does? Maybe, maybe not. So when you've got all these different people looking at so many different eyes on these systems, I struggle to believe genuinely that on-premise solutions are better than or more secure than cloud-based systems. There's always a way in. It's always a matter of time. But if you're following best practices and understand and are using modern technologies in order to prevent access and intrusion, I think you're good. But I think more eyes ultimately means better security. And with, like I said, 700-800 plus people constantly looking at Google on their just base platform, with our attestations and our external pen testers that we have that also bash on our system regularly, I feel like cloud is actually more secure, not less secure.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And Gary, I don't know if you can add to cloud locks you in. People are asking that question. How do you position that?
And that's funny because it really doesn't. It's actually flexible out there. It truly is. If it's a true cloud-based, and I'm going to use something that Ben said earlier, because I think it's extremely important, especially for that question. And that is it native to the cloud? Okay. And a company like yours, okay, Arcules, it's native to the cloud. So it really doesn't matter what systems are out there. You don't have to have proprietary cameras or all these things that tie you in, which would lock you in. There are systems out there that will do that, but Arcules is not one of them. And that's why we're having this webinar, is to enlighten people and let them know that no, cloud does not lock you in. And matter of fact, it opens you up to be able to work with MSPs, with different AIs, with the analytics on the edge from from various camera manufacturers. So I think that myth right there is totally what it is. It is a myth. That is absolutely not true.
Fantastic. And TJ, what would you say? So benefits, what are the benefits of going to a cloud-based system? You as a consultant, right, probably get asked that on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think the basic question that we're asked, or I'm asked quite a bit, is what is cloud? How does this function? And I look at it from a couple of different perspectives, because we cover a lot of different type of construction. We have, ground up construction projects. We have tenant improvement projects that we work with. We have retrofit projects. To the retrofit folks that are looking at upgrading or taking out their existing system, being able to use that, reuse the asset in the field from a budgetary standpoint is huge. We don't have to go in and change out camera technologies in order to do this, right? From a ground up construction, working very closely with the IT groups on how exactly this is going to function is really a big deal. And especially as IT has over the last decade or so has more input into the overall security decisions that are made within clients. And at PLANNET, we deal with very small 10, 12 person companies that maybe are doing a tenant improvement project in downtown LA, all the way up to these mammoth projects for very large clients. And again, the question is always asked, what exactly, what's the impact this has? Really, from my perspective, having this information and being able to present this to them and define what those options are for the client and how that impacts their budget, that's a big deal.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, TJ. And agree. Hi, Eric. Hey, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. The Hilton decided I was done being connected to the internet, so
no worries
apologies.
whatsoever. Glad you're able to jump back in. When we were talking about specifically some of the value add, and analytics is one of the questions, right? What impact has edge-based analytics on a cloud-based application?
Yeah, so what I was getting to was devices are more powerful. Most of the computing power is now at the edge on the actual cameras rather than at a server. So what that means to a lot of you end users on this call right now is you don't have to think about HVAC costs to keep a server cool. You don't have to think about upgrading your hardware to have more horsepower to run analytics. Analytics is such an interesting conversation. When we were having our preparation for this call, a lot of people don't run analytics because, for lack of better words, all they care about is an image. But when you're actually having an incident, you really want that metadata, which is effectively the notes on a scene, to find what happened. I dealt with a large county the other day, and they were getting tired of their low-income housing, people throwing mattresses away in the trash cans. And a simple loitering analytic from people taking 10 seconds throwing a mattress into a trash can can alert a guard. Or large retailers are using analytics to just, discover hotspots. I mean, there are so many creative ways to run analytics, and the biggest affront to it has been the large cost due to that large head-end requirement. And working with a partner like Arcules that constantly updates their servers, constantly updates their software, really allows us to minimize that cost and give much more capability to an overall system for everybody. So kind of a short-winded and quick description of my thoughts, but I'm sure everybody here can, speak to that.
Fantastic.
I would love to add something to that. I think that that Eric kind of hit the nail on the head there in a lot of areas. One of the main things is that people have to understand of why edge analytics has become so important as we move forward is it removes the need for high power servers. It's enough that if you have an application, you're buying a network video solution, you're buying an NVR, but then on top of it, to run the analytics on the backside, you got to add another, a GUI, right? You got to add another box, more support, more updates, more integrations, all these things. By having the analytics at the edge, all that processing is now done out there, and there's no need to incorporate and have those additional costs. And the ability to have those analytics at the edge really enables the clients to, when they purchase a camera, to be able to have that functionality right out of the box, and then be able to incorporate it by leveraging your head-end system, which like Arcules, they're able to do is leverage those applications within their system architecture to be able to do that. So I think it's really important that edge analytics right now, to me, is having a big impact on the solutions we're providing. So I would turn it over to TJ to kind of get his thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, no, Gary, I think you summed up that very well. From an analytics standpoint, again, I go back to the thing that I was talking about just a minute ago. There are certain clients that we have that are running certain types of analytics out in the field, and they feel like that if they make that transition from the on-premise server, the classic on-premise server kind of model, over to the cloud, are they going to have to give up those types of analytics that they're using there? And again, presenting them a solution that allows them to keep that intact and keep their existing security posture in place is really important to them. And again, I'll keep using this term. Budget is a huge issue, huge issue. So anything we can do to preserve the integrity of the budget for a project, we're certainly looking at those types of solutions for that, for my clients.
Perfect. And Ben, I didn't know if you had anything to add to that.
Yeah, maybe just falling back on that previous comment I made earlier as well. So yes, cost and everything, but it's also the hidden cost that this saves on, right, which is bandwidth primarily. You're no longer having to backhaul the video to another device, so you're either saving on the device or you're saving on your egress to the internet. So yeah, 100% agree with everything that's been said. It's ultimately a cost reducer as we move to the edge, and then obviously also helps with low bandwidth scenarios as well.
Perfect. So next question, it's with regard to vision. Ben, maybe you could kick it off. Where do we see cloud video cloud application 5 years from today?
Sure. I think as we move forward, we will see more decentralization a little bit of the systems. So more integration points as things get more complex. I think as we move forward, we need to make that easier integrations. Everything today feels very custom in the physical security industry. Everything feels like it's a lot of additional effort. Every single time you add a layer or add a new product, it's not as simple as it should be. So I think as we move into the next 5 years, I think we'll see more elastic compute concepts. Arcules is already moving in that area. We're not fully deployed yet, as we move forward, elastic compute all the way down to the edge, understanding maybe even down to the camera as we move forward, understanding how, hey, this camera has some GPU cycles, right? Maybe we can run this analytic on this, right? But you know, maybe I need to move this workload up here because it's too heavy. This concept of smart compute, I think, is something that's going to take us into the future. What else? Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing over the next 5 years that needs to happen. That and integrations and making it seamless for the end user to integrate products way more easy.
Fantastic. And Gary, are you hearing and seeing the same things here? Yep.
Yes, I am actually, and I equated. I'm gonna date myself a little bit here, but what's occurring right now with video and the cloud is very similar to what we saw 20 years ago when we went from analog to digital. We're at that phase right now where it's starting to really kind of head that direction. And everybody thought 20 years ago, oh, digital, everyone's just going to jump on it and analog is going to be done in a year. Well, it wasn't like that at all. Okay, it was a steady transition over time, and I think we're going to see the same thing here. But I think it's actually going to be accelerated now because there's so much that's out there and so much of that integration that's going to be computed with applications and integrations and things on the backside. But I tell you one thing that I think that's important, and I'm going to give a little example here of the access example. You know, back when 20 years ago, when everybody was going from analog to digital, well, the companies that were doing all of the analog had a hard time in that transition. Did not go real well for them. It was very costly. They had to figure out where's that line at, where companies like Arcules, which I'm going to go back to, the native cloud application is, that's all you're playing in. That's all you've played in. So I think that we're going to see a lot of companies like that are going to be taking off relatively quick and are going to do a great job. Companies that started like Access, and I go back to them, they were committed from day one. That's all they ever did. And they grew into the largest camera manufacturer in the world. Okay. I see that in the same thing in the cloud applications is the companies that are starting in it and that are focused on it from the get-go are going to be the most successful and are going to have the best systems that are out there. I think when you try to transition from a basic old school NVR solution and then start to move into cloud, I think you're still going to have some of those issues of how to convert that and where does that line take you, where I think that companies such as Arcules are native to that and are going to take off relatively quick. And this is the future. As technology gets better, we're going to see this take off more and more.
Eric, as a fellow manufacturer and part of the solution, is that what you're seeing as well, those trends for the 5-year mark?
Yeah, you know, everybody's bringing up some very good points. I mean, one of the things that's very interesting, I mean, Gary made excellent points. I mean, Bosch had trouble transitioning from analog to IP. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I think we're one of the world leaders now in analytics and cybersecurity in that IP space. But one thing we're seeing across the board in all manufacturers, surveillance or not, is the advent of AI. AI is an interesting, I bring up AI because, you know, AI, for it to actually work, it's not there yet right now. For it to work, it requires a ton of data to make it happen and exist. So partners like Arcules are effectively essential to making this happen, because you need to take all this data and basically collect more data on the data. And so it's you know, it's very interesting. And so, you know, we are moving towards this paradigm. There's no way around it. And you know, you guys are right. I mean, Gary hits it kind of right on the head. A company like Arcules for this cloud platform is interesting. I mean, I used to be a manager in the Bay Area in the technology space. Arcules kind of fits that model up there where there's all these startups and they're dynamic. Cloud is extremely dynamic, and it's going to be extremely dynamic until it totally grabs its foothold on the space. And you need to have that fluidity from an organization like Arcules versus some of the big security players who are, as Gary alluded to, set in their ways and their thought processes. So as in my selfish partnership, Arcules makes Bosch easy. If any of these end users kind of think of a question, like a situation where they need analytics for a particular situation, we can creatively figure out which analytics to combine and leverage to make finding that solution happen. But getting there and visually seeing it requires a company like Arcules to make it palatable and easy to understand. So I'm not sure if that makes sense to everybody, and it's a lot of round circular points, but yes, cloud's coming, it's coming hard. I mean, everyone's comfortable spending money on their cell phones. They're gonna be comfortable with this, with their visible data. RMR is a normal thing these days, whether or not people realize it. So yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to see what happens. It's kind of interesting. I'm with Gary. I think this is going to happen a lot faster than the analog to IP switch, just because people's mindsets and cultures are completely different right now, and data is becoming so much more important to everybody in all verticals. So anyhow, that's my 2 cents.
No, thank you. And TJ, would you like to add to that, talking about, the video cloud application 5 years from today?
Yeah, no, I think Gary brought up a great comparison. When the market went from analog to digital, yeah, you're seeing that now. And there was companies that really didn't pick up on that. And unfortunately, a lot of those companies are not around anymore. I don't think that'll happen again. I already see and have had multiple conversations with different manufacturers out there that are talking about transitioning some of their services to the cloud. I don't think the on-premise classic on-premise model will go away, because I still think you have companies out there that are more comfortable, I think, from a security posturing standpoint, of having control of everything, or their perception of control of everything. But I think more and more as this younger generation of folks that are starting to really understand, how all these things work, and they become more comfortable with this type of solution, I definitely think you'll see a fairly substantial market part will move over to the cloud piece.
Thank you, TJ. And then to that point, and to Eric's point about influence of subscription-based technologies, Gary, maybe you could kick this off. What is the influence that you're seeing of MSPs in each of our respective fields?
Well, it's growing. It's growing, and it's going to continue to grow. That is going to be what the market is going to be heading to. And you just kind of got to look at what's going on around you, just in the be it the retail world, Amazon world, all these things. Everyone wants to help you through it, point you through, and become your provider, right? And offer these different plans on a monthly basis. Amazon Music and all these different things where you're signing up for. So I think the managed services providers are a big part of what's going to happen here in the future. And it's where I think our industry ultimately will end up in as a big part of. So I think that it's inevitable. It's going to be on us probably sooner than I can plan for, but I'm attempting to do that now.
Fantastic. Eric, would you like to elaborate on that?
No, I mean, there's nothing really to elaborate on. I mean, everybody is pretty right. I mean, we're in a world where everybody wants the newest and the latest and the greatest, and it requires a lot of our system integration partners to kind of shift their models towards managing things. And the only way to do that is to have a technology partner that makes it easy. Health checks are a very important part of any technology. We can't have a system fail when we update firmware. It needs to still work when we make an update, So I agree with Gary. There's nothing really much more to add other than, yes, we are moving into that direction. I am seeing it with our system integration partners. I am seeing that request from our end users that are on this call that we engage with daily. People want cool things. Southern California traditionally is very slow to adopt things compared to the rest of the country, but that's not the case right now with how many high-tech firms are starting to make their way down here. So, me being based in San Diego specifically, we're watching biotech influence the entire country, and so education, is asking for new stuff. They're tired of having 15-year-old obsolete systems, so MSPs are the wave of the future along with this cloud solution. So I agree.
Thanks for that perspective, Eric. And I know, Ben, you have a very unique perspective in that you've come from that MSP space. Would you like to elaborate and share some thoughts?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think everyone's kind of alluded to the same thing, right? Why? And maybe the bigger question is why MSPs are taking over, right? And so MSPs are taking over, and it's been predominantly MSPs have been in the technology space now from a traditional technology space, IT space, not necessarily physical security industry space now for the better part of maybe over a decade, maybe even 2 decades. And they've managed to capture. Originally, you had a telecoms guy, right? All they did was voice, right? Now the MSPs kind of concept seem to get swallowed up. Now that's how that voice offering is happening. It's how IT offerings are happening, and now that's where the physical security industry is now kind of being folded into as well, which is it's into that MSP space. It's now a technology play, not just a physical security play, which is why that change has happened.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a unique point there. And TJ, from your perspective, what would you want to add?
Well, again, really just going back and talking about some of the points that I've made earlier, from a consulting standpoint, I have numerous clients in mind that have standards. They have a standard type of camera, standard type of system. And it's certainly a benefit from a consulting standpoint to have multiple options out there for the client to be able to look at and see that. And the sooner that you can get your product to the market, it's certainly going to be a benefit, long term for these clients, for our clients.
Good point. Thank you, TJ. And since I've got you, last question. What is the single biggest item that would save you time? What are you hearing from folks?
Really, I think going back and the time to manage the actual server, the time to manage the actual on-premise devices that they have, I think that being able to offload that is a huge time saver and certainly a benefit. Absolutely.
Fantastic. We'll go down the list. Gary, what are you hearing? Single biggest item, save you time.
Well, I could tell you right now, from that standpoint, is going to be the programming and the setup.
Yeah.
Cloud-based application is so easy. You can get a system up and running virtually in just a couple of hours, if even that. Okay. And it's the simplicity, the ease of accessibility, the fact that the systems are easy to work with. They guide you through. And then on the backside is the seamless integration. So there's not a bunch of pointing to different devices, and it's very seamless on the backside. And that goes back to the APIs, of course, and everything that's written on the backside. So I would say that covers it pretty well when it comes to saving time, not only on my side, but for the client as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for that perspective. Ben, what would you add? Single biggest time saver you're hearing?
Sorry, someone muted me. Single biggest time, I think definitely setup, definitely really interesting. Also, I think as we move to, it's not necessarily about saving time. I think if everyone thinks about their time, I think it's also operator time, right? So as we're able to iterate so much faster than other companies, we're able to provide value across all the different personas that use the product. It shouldn't just be about the installers. It shouldn't just be about the end users and the security operators, right? We want to make it easy on everyone. You don't want to have to throw a guard in training for an hour, 10 hours just to be able to use a product. So it's time savings across the board with all personas that ultimately use the product.
Excellent, excellent. Eric, I'm sure you have something fantastic to add, but we have hit time. What I'd love to do is thank everyone again for all of their time and interest and being part of this discussion. We hope you found value in it. And I would love to let Gary say some final words, as TRL Systems is the primary host for this conversation. Gary.
Well, I just wanted to do is thank everyone, all of you, for participating and taking time out of your schedule to hopefully learn and take a little something away of what the future of cloud-based security looks like. I truly appreciate everyone's time, and I want to thank my co-host and panel members, TJ Hicks with PLANNET. Thank you so much, appreciate it. Also, I want to do is thank Eric Camarino with Bosch. Truly appreciate you participating. Ben, a fantastic job. Laurel, thank you so much for all the support. And everyone, if you're interested in more information, I'd love for you to do is reach out to me. You can contact me direct, you can call me if you like. My number is 909-816-2468. And I'd love to set up a one-on-one meeting and do a demo with Arcules and TRL. And if you need information or would just like to inquiry in anything, you're more than welcome to send me an email. I believe that was posted, but it is gchavaria@trlsystems.com. Thank you all. Look forward to the future of cloud-based architecture. And Arcules looks like they're the leader, so I'm very happy about the partnership. Thanks, everyone. Be safe and healthy.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great day.